Hey there! I'm Chroma, and welcome to part 19 of Making an Abstract Adventure. Welcome back! This time, we've made a pause screen, so now we can pause our game, and we have a few different options here. As well, you may notice a lot of the environment looks very different. Including, now we have some kind of concept designs for our characters, so I guess I'll take a look at that first. So in a Photoshop document, I just kind of mocked this up real quickly. This is just kind of a concept design of what some characters could look like. This could be our Q character, and this is our Knight Sir Cal. So yeah, this is sort of what I'm thinking we'll be going with character wise, where most of the characters will be like basic shapes with like arms like that, being whatever color, and then possibly having hair. And then our Cal character here is holding a sword and shield, because those are two of the abilities that we have made, except when we actually are implementing them properly, sprite sheet wise, it'll be, through actual animation stuff. And then our Q character has what is here like a lead pipe, I guess, that'll be used as like a staff, and I have an idea of how we can implement that story wise. And then here we have some potential ideas for NPCs, maybe, although I'd probably also give them hair like I did with these two. I made these first when I was just experimenting with what the creatures in this world would look like, and then I made these. So yeah, so now we have that. As well, colors could change, like the skin colors, I guess, of these creatures just being any random color on the color wheel. Yeah, so now we have that. As well, our environment, everything's kind of has like a black outline now. I think that could work well for an art style. Although, as you can see here, not everything has a proper outline. Like some things are a lot thicker than others. This is also just a result of using a bunch of placeholder images and then scaling them up. I'd imagine in the actual game, everything would have like the same thickness, which would be about the thickness of these squares here. As well, now if I go into play mode, we have parallax scrolling. So we have foreground elements and background elements moving at different speeds as we move left and right. And we can see that the clouds and the trees are moving at different speeds as well. And I kind of move the trees down a bit so that when we jump, you don't see the base of the trees. Although if we kind of go off the edge of the map here, we can see, yeah, the illusion is broken, but that's okay. As well, you can see our ground, because it is one really massively stretched cube. There's like this big black fade that is the border. Again, this would be something that wouldn't be hopefully the case with any actual art that we have. They'd be a really thin black outline like we have on these foreground cubes. So yeah, we have all of that. Now, going into the parallax first, and then we'll go into the pause screen second. So how this was done was actually not through coding at all. I thought I would have everything on the same layer and then do parallax scrolling through code. But actually, I was able to figure out a way to do it without that. If I go out of 2D mode for a second here, you can see, if we look at our stuff here, that everything's actually kind of offset, like not just on a 2D plane now. So we actually have, wherever our camera is, if I can find that real quickly. So our camera is here. We actually have, so these foreground elements are in front of everything. We have, like this foreground element is in front of the ground, and then we have like our characters and all that. And then we have our trees, and then, I'm also just realizing that the sky is in front of the clouds, but that's fine because the sorting layers kind of work stuff out with that. Yeah, so that's what we've got going on here. And then our camera now, I've actually changed it to being perspective instead of orthographic, which technically means we now have a 3D game. Not really, but so our camera's actually using 3D stuff as opposed to it being an orthographic before, and now instead of a size, it's using a perspective, or it's using a field of view, which can be changed. And now, hypothetically, if I rotate the camera, you can actually see that, yeah, there's more depth to things. Not that I don't think we would ever actually rotate the camera like this in the game, but yeah. Now, one thing as well, I'm just realizing, is that everything with the zoom of the camera is being done using the orthographic size. So I probably will have to change some things with having this get access to the this field of view instead. But that's something I can do later because I just realized that I'll need to do that. Anyways, so that is how parallax scrolling is being done. Oh yeah, on the actual background itself, this has been moved forward, like on the z-axis by 5, midground's at 0, and the background's at like -1. Yeah, and I could play around with different depths with the different things that I make, which then also brings into question actual background elements that I make. Originally I was planning on just making the whole background as one like giant sprite, like one giant image in like Photoshop, and then I just kind of put it in the background of everything. But now I might do that, make something in Photoshop that is like an entire background of a level, but then have the different layers being different layers, import them separately into Unity, to be able to then have this parallax scrolling. And yeah, it'll hopefully work fine. Yeah. So that being that, as well, yeah, here's our characters here. I put the our placeholder characters into kind of replacing our current characters. Again, this is just concept art, so this hopefully wouldn't be exactly what the characters will look like when we properly make them. This is kind of, I guess, what it's looking like with them running around. And yeah, also they wouldn't constantly have like the sword, shield, and the lead pipe there. That was just to test how they look. And also, if we still use our what button is it? Our like attack for this character here, our sword would need to be a lot bigger. I think also with the pipe. Yeah, so like sizes and all that, that's something that would have to be implemented properly. As well, for now, I'm probably going to, until I make better art, I just wanted to show how that looks. I'm probably going to go back to using the other sprites that we had before, and all I did to do that was just this sprite that we made, or that I made, that is our Cal and Q characters, just putting them as child objects of our main sprite, and then disabling the sprite renderers on everything else. So going back to our going back into 2D mode and back to our characters, just enabling all of these sprite renderers. We'll get back our characters to how they were, but now with a black outline, which looks pretty nice. But yeah, I do want them to actually have like faces and all that, how we saw before, like so. Yeah, next onto what next? Pause screens stuff. So going into play mode yet again. So hitting escape, we now have a pause screen here. All of our UI at the in all of the corners come into view. Everything's still spinning and hovering here. I had to do some coding to like get things to still hover even when, because now also we can't move, so time.timescale set to 0, which stops everything in our game. So like enemies moving, anything that's physics related. That's also why in a lot of our calculations we had like time.delta time, because that makes it that now that we pause the game, everything stops. But I had to do some stuff to make sure that the stuff that's in this pause screen is hovering as we want it to. Yeah, that we'll look at in just a second. So how this pause screen is actually working, I wanted to not use the mouse. I want this to work with just the keyboard so that it'll be easier to reroute it to being like a controller input down the line, if we want this game to have controller input, because yeah. So using the WASD keys, we kind of move between the different options here with resume, options, progress, and exit level. At the moment, 3 of these buttons do nothing. Hitting progress just prints a message that says progress. Hitting options prints an options 1, and exit level prints an exit level thing. Because those things don't really exist yet, exit level will probably be simple enough. It'll just be a matter of returning to the hub world. Resume works. It resumes the game. Also hitting escape again does that. But yeah, I'm gonna wait on doing progress and options until maybe until like we have a demo test level thing done, so we can figure out more of what options we're gonna have and what should be stored in like progress. Because I think we could have stuff of like, I'm not really sure yet, with like story completion percentages maybe, or like so if the collectibles here show like the number of collectibles you've collected in a given level, progress could bring up a thing that shows like the amount of collectibles you've collected overall, and other stuff like that. We'll see. Yeah, so that's that. As well, there would probably be 2 versions of this pause screen. If you hit exit level and go back to the hub, then there'd be a different hub screen, different like pause screen in the hub, where this would be replaced by like exit game, and I'd go back to like the main menu, and then yeah, so that's that. So let's go into how all this is actually being programmed. So we have this pause screen UI here, and going into that first, we have as a child object of this giant parent screen, parent, just to kind of keep things organized. We have pause UI, which is another empty game object, just kind of store all of this. Then we have, first of all, opening up a lot of these. So we have some buttons here that are these. And because of the way that the things with borders would stretch weirdly, as we saw with our ground here, I wanted to try and get these buttons to actually look nice right off the bat. So I just made this square using our white square sprites here. By the way, there's now more as well for ones that have borders and ones that don't. So we have that. So yeah, I used the one without borders here, and then just duplicated the square, made it slightly bigger, and made that the background as a shadow here. And then another quirk of how Unity UI stuff works is that sort of from top to bottom, the order of the objects in the hierarchy is the order that they're drawn. So by having the shadow of, for example, this resume button being above the blue part of this button here makes it be in front, which is why I wanted to have these be like parented just for also organization, but I had to make the shadow be the parent object and then the button be the child object so that it is drawn correctly. Eventually, this would probably be, when we make like an actual graphic for this, then there will be no need for this, but this is just a temporary thing now. Also, because of, to fit like the squares and circles theme, we have like some of these buttons being squares and some of these being like circular, just to fit with the theme of our game. Also, the text is very temporary. It's just normal Arial text. Eventually, we'll probably make an actual font and then have that to use. That'll probably look, I don't know, some combination of being blocky and like bubble text, maybe? Or something like that. We'll figure it out. So far, a lot of the theme of this game is around like square things and circular things. But yeah, we'll see how far that goes. Anyways, so then on the text of these individual things, that's just a UI text object. With this one saying resume as an example. Not much to say here, just playing around with these options to get the text to look nice enough. And then also having the same drop shadow kind of thing of just duplicating the text and then moving it to the right and down slightly to create this sort of drop shadow effect so that the same color of like white text looks good on any color background. Even having white text on this black background or this white text on this yellow background looks fine enough with a having the black shadow there. And then we also have a pause thing, like a text at the top to show that we're paused. I could create like a separate like black panel that kind of goes over this, but I think it's fine. It looks good enough that like you can still see the game in the background. Eventually, we could also maybe try and mess with stuff to try and have like the background kind of blur slightly, maybe, but that would potentially involve having to do with shaders, which is not something I have a lot of experience with, but we can look into that down the line. So that's that. Also, in order to actually do the hovering that our objects do, the object hover script that we used before, just putting that onto basically all of our UI elements that hover up and down, and it's as simple as that. As well as then adding a boolean here called time unscaled, that setting it to true makes it move not caring about like the time.timescale thing, so that when we pause the game, it's going to still move, whereas things that are spinning like in the actual game, not on the UI, they will stop spinning. Yeah, and I made, instead of this being like time scaled, I made time unscaled. I made it time unscaled so that by default the boolean would be false on all of the other things that we set to spin by the time, so that I can just set it to true on these few things to then set them to not spin with time. So it's a little easy thing to do there. So now I don't have to like go through everything that I've made spin or hover and then set these to like true. I can just do it with a few objects. And anyways, onto code-wise of how all this is being done. Not here. So over on pause UI script here, decently long, but as you'll see in a moment, a lot of the code does similar things. So starting off, we're getting a reference to the pause menu thing, like the parent object over, where is it here, that like everything is a child object of, as you can see here. Then getting a reference to 4 menu buttons that correspond to resume, option, progress, and exit level. A selected color that, as you saw when we are in the pause menu, whichever one is selected, that's just a color that it tints, and I made it just like a gray color, I guess. That could also change later on as well. And then having 4 like references to our UI scripts for all the objects in the corners, to be able to change a boolean on them to make them stay on the screen while the game is paused. Yeah. So that's that. So that's all our public variables here. Then a private boolean for whether or not the game is currently paused. Then an int for the currently selected button for if we hit space, that runs one of the button's functions. And then a private reference to all of the button colors. So we are getting the colors of all the buttons so that when we tint them gray, when we select a new button, we can tint it back to whatever its original color was. So that's that. So in our start function, first we're just making sure that time to timescale equals 1 in case for whatever reason it's not. Because as we'll see down here, if we were to pause the game and have it be like time.timescale gets set to 0, which freezes the game. If we were to then select something like exit level to like go to another scene, I want to make sure that time.timescale when we enter a new scene is set to 1 as it should be, because we won't ever want to start the game with it being frozen. So then setting pause to equal to false, setting the pause screen to equal to false because we're not starting the game being paused. Then the button colors, setting that up by making a new array of length 4, and then going through each array up to the button colors length, and then setting that button color to the menu buttons that we assign publicly dot color, so that it'll create then an array of 4 where each one is it matches with the corresponding menu button's color. So like the first one will be the blue, the second one will be the green, then the yellow, then the red. Then setting selected button to 0 so that we start with the selected button being the resume button. Then the menu buttons dot selected color, setting it to the basically the first like that resume button to that gray color, so it's selected. Then going through UI slide, so the script here that we made, which is how our 4 UI objects, the collectibles and the health, slide into frame when they are when they need to. I've now made a new variable on here called stay active, where if that's true, it'll always go towards being active, like in the active position, and it won't ever call the deactivate function there. So yeah, that's that. So we're going to go through every UI slide object and then set stay active to false, because we don't want that to be the case when we start off. Then in our update function, first of all, having a section here of testing if or not we are pausing the game. So if input.getKey down, keycode.escape. So if we hit the escape key, then if we are paused, so if the pause boolean is true, then we're resuming. Otherwise, if the pause boolean is not true, then we are pausing. So yeah, we have that sort of toggle there. Then after we have that input, then actually no, we'll go down to the resume and pause functions first. So our pause function here, it sets time to scale to 0. Then the pause menu thing, the parent object here, setting that to true, activating it, setting pause to true, and then going through all of our UI slides and setting their stay active thing to true so that all of our things of UI slide into screen and stay there. Then resume does the exact opposite, so time.timescale equals 1, deactivating the pause screen, setting pause to false, going through all the UI slides, setting them to false. So easy enough there. And then while I'm down here, before I go back up to the rest of all these if statements, our other 3 functions here for options, progress, and exit level, these are all kind of temporary, where they're just printing just some debug messages to show that they were working correctly and not doing anything yet. We'll come back to those when we actually code them properly, like for what we'll be using them for. So yeah. Oh, also, I believe, yeah, at the top here, another thing I forgot to mention is that in order to use the images that our UI objects are, we have to have Unity, using Unity engine.ui at the top. I also temporarily have using Unity engine.scene management. That'll be used down here with the exit level when we are going to a different scene. It's just not needed right now, but it will be later on. Anywho, so back up to where we left off in update. So if the game is paused, then we can test if we are navigating the different buttons or if we hit space to activate a certain function. So here we have if input.getKeyDown is keycode.space, then going through our 4 options and then testing which one of these functions we need to run. This is kind of hard-coded, but that's fine because I don't think we'll be really... we might use stuff similar to this when we're making like our main menu and stuff like that, but we can just hard-code it again there and it's fine. I don't really need to make a system that's that robust to like dynamically be able to change. It's fine. Yeah, so we're dynamically, or we're hard-coded calling these specific functions for whichever one we are needing to run. Then, in order to navigate to different buttons, so if we hit the W key, then we are setting the color of the button that we were currently on back to its original color, to then travel to a new button, to then set its color to the gray. And then again, this is kind of hard-coded of just, if the selected button is 2, which was the exit level one, then we're setting the selected button to 0. No, hold on, sorry, 2 would have been the progress one, setting it to 0 would then set it to resume. If it's 3, which is the exit level, then setting it to 1, which is the options. Yeah, and then setting that current menu button that we're now on to the gray color. Then for S, D, and A, the code is basically the same, just setting the current button back to its original color, moving to the new button that we should be moving to, and then setting the color back to gray. It's all the same, just different numbers for moving up, down, left, or right, just because of the fact that we're in this square fashion. If the buttons were just like going all top to bottom, that'd be something that I could more easily not hard code, just with there being an array of all the buttons, and then if you hit like up or down, it'll just go to the next one in the list. But because of the way that we're doing this in this sort of square fashion, because I thought that could just kind of look cooler as a pause screen style, yeah, I just hard coded it like that. Anyways, yeah, so all in all, that's how that is done. 3 other quick little things here. Oh, let me also save this because I made a small modification. So we have our time unscaled here, and down here where we are actually turning our objects. Yeah, so in the hover script, normally we were moving up or down based on time speed plus the time offset, and then getting the mathf.cos of that. So getting a value between -1 and 1 based on that time. This time goes off of the time.delta time, where if we freeze the game from pausing, it will stop going up. So in that case, anything that was hovering will stop hovering while the game is paused. Here, however, if our time unscaled Boolean is true, then we are doing the exact same thing except using unscaled time. So that will go up and down regardless of whether the game is paused or not. It'll go up and down at the same rate. So yeah, we have that. Then over on object spin over here, then we have the same sort of thing except slightly different. So we have the same Boolean of time unscaled, and then down here we have if time unscaled is true, then so normally what we had before was just multiplying by time.delta time. Here I could have just gotten rid of it, but just so that the numbers work out the same, the default value of time.delta time is 0.02. You can change the value in Unity, as well if you change like the time scale, that would mess with that as well. Like if you made it like 0.5 in like slow motion or whatever. But for the most part, the time.delta time value will be 0.02. So to make this be the same, rotating at the same speed, just multiplying it by 0.02. And I suppose I could combine these multiplications, but this is just easier to read what's going on. So I'll leave it as that. So all in all, that is basically that. So we have a pause screen, we have improved art, kind of. Some work definitely needs to be done. For example, with like our trees here, this is definitely way too thick of an outline. Again, this is kind of the master, like, this is the basis for, I guess, how thick I'd want the outlines to be for everything else. And it looks fine on most things. Maybe things like this cloud, that looks fine with it being a bit thicker. But I might want to make everything the same thickness just to be consistent. But that's something that will be focused on more when we get to making like actual art, which I might start actually doing soon. So so far I've just been making all this stuff not really towards the demo, just things like buttons and ice and all that, things that I'm pretty sure will be used in the game somewhere. I'm thinking I'm gonna start like actually planning the actual demo. I said actually twice in one sentence. I'll start planning the actual demo, what I want it to look like, and maybe start actually drawing out a level plan, like a floor plan sort of, not a floor plan, it'd be like from the side, like a blueprint sort of thing of what I want this demo to look like. I'm thinking we might actually, as a demo, have like 3 mini levels, one where you're just a cube going through some stuff, one where you're just a sphere going through some stuff, and one where you're both doing the whole switching mechanic thing. So yeah, so it'll be like 3 mini levels as for one demo thing. I also haven't decided what the like environment's gonna look like. I kind of want to use like the environment of what I think will be an actual level in the game. I just haven't decided which one yet. I might go with an underground mine because I know that's going to be a level that I kind of want. We'll see. There's other options. I'll probably give all 3 the same environmental palette, I guess. So I'm not like, yes, I'm going to have to make all this art eventually, but for just getting the demo done, I can have it all look the same art-wise. It should be fine there. Just to get that finished so I can get the more important thing back, which is like feedback on the gameplay wise, improving gameplay stuff before moving on to like actual game stuff. But anyways, that'll do it for this episode. Next time I'll be doing I'm not sure. I think actually the last thing I'll probably make before I move on to actually making this demo is an NPC dialogue system, having NPCs that you can talk to, akin like these guys, and then having like speech bubbles above their head of them saying dialogue. Yeah, and then we'll be moving into making our actual demo, which is exciting. And then we'll probably have to still make a lot more things for that demo, but now we can, once we have a plan in mind of what we're making, as opposed to just making generic things that will probably be in the game, we'll be making things that we know will be used and how we want to use them. So, that's enough rambling from me. Thank you all so much for watching. Yeah, and as always, I'll see you around.